What if the little girl who was sold for $9,000 grew up to become powerful enough to forgive the parents who betrayed her? Welcome to Silver Narratives. Today, we share Jennifer's story, a story of pain, survival, and strength. My name is Jennifer. I am 33 years old now, and today I am successful. But my life did not begin with happiness. It began with rejection. When I was born, my father looked at me with disappointment. He wanted a son, but I was a daughter. In his eyes, that was my first mistake. As I grew up, my father drank alcohol every night. He shouted at my mother, threw plates across the room, and broke our furniture. Our home was filled with fear instead of love. When I was 7 years old, he left us. He walked away and never came back. After that, my mother worked very hard to support us. She had 3 jobs. During the day, she washed dishes in restaurants. At night, she cleaned office buildings. She accepted any job she could find because we needed money to survive. We lived in a small basement apartment in San Francisco. The walls were wet, and rats hid in the dark corners. At night, I covered my ears so I would not hear the scratching sounds. My mother was always tired. Her hands were red and rough from strong cleaning chemicals, and her back hurt from carrying heavy buckets of water. I was only 7 years old, but I tried to help her. I carried bags, swept floors, and stayed quiet so I would not cause problems. We were often hungry. Sometimes kind people gave us old bread. Many times, my mother skipped meals so that I could eat. Every month, our landlord came to our door and shouted, "Pay the rent or leave." My mother begged him for more time, but he never listened. Even though life was difficult, I loved my mother deeply. She was the only family I had, and I believed she loved me too. Then one cold winter night, everything changed. My mother woke me up while it was still dark outside. She told me to get dressed because we were going somewhere. I felt confused, but I trusted her. We walked through the freezing streets until we reached a large house with tall iron gates and wide stone steps. It looked like a place from another world. My mother knocked on the heavy door. A woman wearing a black dress opened it and looked at me without kindness, as if I did not belong there. Inside, an elderly couple sat in a beautiful room filled with expensive furniture. The man wore a formal suit, and the woman had shining rings on every finger. My mother gently pushed me forward and said, "This is Jennifer. She is 9 years old. She is healthy. She can work." The man studied my face and asked, "Can she clean? Can she cook?" My mother quickly nodded and replied, "Yes, she is a good girl. Very quiet." Then the woman spoke in a calm voice. "We will give you $9,000. At that moment, my heart felt like it stopped. I turned to look at my mother, waiting for her to say something, anything. But she was not looking at me. Her eyes were fixed on the money lying on the table. And in that silent moment, I realized that my life was about to change forever. That night, when my mother stood in front of the wealthy couple, I felt fear growing inside me. I grabbed her hand and asked, "Mama, what is happening?" She quickly pulled her hand away. I held her coat tightly and begged, "Mama, please don't leave me." But she pushed me to the floor. Then she said words that destroyed my childhood, "Jennifer, if you follow me, you are no longer my daughter. I will never forgive you." My heart broke into pieces. She took the money and walked out the door without looking back. I screamed and cried, but the door closed, and she was gone. That night, I understood the truth: my mother had sold me. The couple's name was Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. They were wealthy, but their hearts felt cold. They had no children, and they did not want love. They wanted someone to work for them. Mrs. Henderson gave me a tiny room in the attic. It was dark and freezing in winter. She gave me old clothes and a long list of chores. Every morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock. I cleaned the kitchen, washed the floors, polished the silver dishes, and prepared breakfast. If I made a small mistake, Mrs. Henderson hit me with a wooden spoon. If I worked too slowly, she locked me in the attic without food. I cried myself to sleep almost every night. I missed my mother deeply, but at the same time, I felt anger toward her. Years passed, and I grew older. I learned how to survive. I learned how to stay quiet and how to be strong inside. Then one day, when I was 14 years old, something unexpected happened. I was cleaning the library while Mr. Henderson was reading a newspaper. He looked at me and asked, "Can you read, girl?" I nodded. Before she left me, my mother had taught me how to read. Mr. Henderson handed me the newspaper and said, "Read this." I read the article out loud with a clear voice. He looked surprised. "You are smart," he said. From that day, my life slowly began to change. Mr. Henderson started teaching me. He gave me books and lessons in mathematics, history, and English. Mrs. Henderson did not like this at all, but he ignored her complaints. One day he told me, "You remind me of my sister. She died when she was young. You have her eyes." I did not know if that was true, but his kindness gave me hope for the first time in years. When I turned 18, he made me his assistant. He began teaching me about his business. He owned fashion stores across New York City. He was strict, but he was fair. He often said, "Jennifer, if you work hard, you will succeed." I believed him. Every night, I studied and learned everything I could about business. When I was 25, Mr. Henderson became very ill. Before he passed away, he called me to his bedside. He looked at me gently and said, "Jennifer, you are like a daughter to me. I am leaving you my company." Mrs. Henderson was furious, but the will was clear. Everything was legally mine. At 28, I became the owner of a growing fashion empire. I worked hard and expanded the business. I opened new stores in Paris, London, and Tokyo. People began calling me Miss Jennifer. I was powerful, respected, and financially successful. But I never forgot my past. I never forgot the cold basement apartment or the hunger that lived there with us. Because of my experiences, I chose to be different. I hired people who had nothing. I gave opportunities to those who were struggling. I treated every worker with respect and kindness, the kindness I once needed so badly. One cold evening in December, I was leaving my office after a long day of work. The air was freezing, and people were rushing home. As I walked down the street in New York City, I noticed an old woman sitting on the sidewalk. She was wrapped in torn blankets, and her hands were shaking from the cold. In front of her was a small piece of cardboard with simple words written on it, "Please help." There was something about her face that felt familiar. I slowed down. Then I stepped closer. When I saw her eyes, my heart almost stopped. I knew those eyes. It was my mother. She looked so different from the woman I remembered. Her hair was gray and dirty. Her face was thin and tired. Life had not been kind to her. She did not recognize me. I knelt down beside her and gently asked, "Do you have any family?" She looked at me with empty, hopeless eyes and said softly, "I had a daughter once, but I lost her." My chest felt tight with pain. I swallowed my tears and said, "You did not lose her. You sold her." Her face suddenly became still. Slowly, she looked at me more carefully. Her eyes grew wide with shock and fear. Then she whispered my name, Jennifer. Tears filled her eyes. Her voice shook as she said, "I am sorry. I am so sorry, Jennifer. I was desperate. I had no money. I thought you would have a better life." I stood there trembling. Inside me, there was a storm of emotions. Part of me wanted to walk away and leave her in the cold, just as she had left me years ago. Part of me wanted revenge for the pain she caused. But there was another part of me, a softer part, that still remembered she was my mother. After a long moment of silence, I reached out my hand and helped her stand. "Come with me," I said quietly. I took her to my apartment. I gave her clean clothes and warm food. I prepared a bed so she could sleep safely through the night. The next morning, she woke up and began to cry again. She looked at me with shame and said, "I do not deserve your kindness." I looked at her calmly and answered, "Maybe you do not. But I will not become what you were." In that moment, I understood something important: success is not only about money or power. True success is choosing kindness when you have every reason to be cruel. It is breaking the cycle of pain instead of continuing it. Jennifer's story reminds us that our past does not control our future. We can rise above betrayal. We can choose compassion. And sometimes, forgiveness is the greatest strength of all. That morning, as my mother cried and said she did not deserve my kindness, I looked at her and made a decision. I said softly, "I will not abandon you." From that day on, she lived with me. But she was not the same mother who sold me years ago. She was older, weaker, and full of regret. Now, she was the one who needed care. Life had changed our roles. I became the protector. I became the provider. Slowly, we began to build a new relationship, not perfect, not easy, but honest. A few months later, something unexpected happened. One evening, there was a knock on my apartment door in New York City. When I opened it, I saw a thin, weak old man with gray hair standing in front of me. His clothes were simple, and his eyes were filled with shame. He spoke in a trembling voice. "Jennifer. I am your father." I felt my body freeze. My father? I had not seen him in 23 years. He was the man who drank every night, who shouted, who broke our home with anger. He was the man who walked away and never looked back. Before I could say anything, he fell to his knees. Tears ran down his face as he said, "Please forgive me. I was a coward. I destroyed our family." I stood there in silence. Behind me, my mother was watching. She was crying too. The two people who had caused so much pain in my childhood were now standing before me, broken, sorry, and human. I took a deep breath. I could have closed the door. I could have told him to leave, just as he had left us. But pain had already controlled too much of my life. I did not want it to control my future. So I stepped aside and said quietly, "Come inside." Today, I live with both of them, the mother who sold me and the father who abandoned me. I have not forgotten what they did. The past cannot be erased. But I chose not to let it poison my heart. My success is not my money. It is not my fashion empire. It is not the stores in beautiful cities around the world. My true success is that my heart survived the betrayal that could have destroyed it. I remained kind in a world that was cruel to me. I chose forgiveness when anger would have been easier. That is my real victory. If Jennifer's story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silver Narratives, where stories of pain become stories of strength, and broken beginnings lead to powerful endings.